Hey everybody, it's Herb with New Yorker in Knoxville, and today I want to talk about a really cool plant that I think a lot of people take for granted in my area, but it is known as Kudzu, and it is commonly referred to as the plant that ate the South. And the reason why is because this is a very aggressive vining plant that just seems to swallow up the entire landscape. If you look in front of me, all that green along the hillside and vining up the trees, that is all kudzu. And kudzu is this green vining plant right here. You can see it's got like a fuzzy vine, and it generally has these three big leaves that incrementally pop out, and it just grows and grows and grows and grows and grows. It is reported to grow approximately 12 inches a day, which is insane. It is the fastest growing plant that I've ever seen, and every year once it gets warm enough, all the dormant vines start to produce new shoots and runners that pop out and even run underneath the ground. So this stuff is even more, way more aggressive than even something like bamboo. But the reason it's cool is because even though it's invasive, is that there's actually a lot of uses for it. So originally, this plant was, it was encouraged to be planted and propagated by the U.S. Department of Agriculture in early last century, and I believe they used it for things like irrigation control. It came over originally from, I think it was Japan or somewhere in Asia, and you know, I mean, it has like an ivy type effect to it, so it's not, you know, it's not an ugly plant, but at this point it's just taken over the entire state, the entire region basically. But why is this useful? Well, it's useful, one, because it's a readily available source of biomass. So you can actually mulch this stuff. Even though it is aggressive, it's not invasive in terms of like spreading seed. So it's not like, let's say, something like garlic mustard, where once it's in your compost pile, the seeds will start sprouting and taking over. This is more invasive through spreading its vines, and so if you chop it up enough and you compost it, you shouldn't have any problem with it like taking over your garden or anything like that. They use it as compost already. The second reason that this plant is amazing is because it is the most productive source of goat and cow fodder, among other animals that can eat it. So I mean, you can also feed this to your rabbits, your chickens, anything that eats lean green leafy vegetables. But I mean, you have a food source for livestock that grows a foot a day and keeps coming back year after year and can cover acres and acres and acres, no problem. Goats love this stuff. In fact, they bring in goats to trim this stuff back when it starts to take over an area. So, I mean, if you have goats and you have the stuff in your area, you have a free food source that's very rich in protein. The kudzu is, it's actually a legume, so it's like related to beans and peanuts. So it's a nitrogen fixing plant, which means that it actually puts nutrition and encourages fertility in the soil, which is why we're seeing a lot of other plants grow up around it. The plants that are growing with it in this area, we have a thicket of blackberries that's growing through and around this stuff, and then also honeysuckles and things like that. So even though this stuff is extremely aggressive, there are other plants that manage to grow along with it. The third reason that this plant is really cool is because it's also a green leafy vegetable that you can eat. It's I wouldn't recommend eating it raw because it's very fibrous, but apparently if you like saute it in butter and garlic or whatnot, you can cook it a lot like a spinach. And some people eat the shoots, but I wouldn't want to deal with all that fuzz. So the plants seem to, you know, they're just, it's almost impossible to get rid of this stuff. But you can use it as a food source. You can cook it like spinach. You can feed your livestock with it. And it's even arguably good for the soil if you tear it out and start growing other stuff in the spot it existed. So it's a really cool plant. I think it's a wonderful resource that's yet to be tapped into. But I'm going to be doing a few videos on things that are already naturally growing in my property, because, you know, we work so hard as gardeners to try and control our environment and cultivate our environment. Why not make use of the stuff that nature's already given us for free? You know, I have blackberries growing in the thicket surrounding my backyard. I have wild strawberries growing. You can see the vines here, they just keep sending out. They're not hard to rip out though. You just pick them, you know, it's not hard if you actually just control it on a daily basis, or you can mow over it. You know, it's not particularly hard to trim back, it's just that it keeps growing. So but I mean, there's just, why fight with nature when you cooperate with it? You know, if you have goats, if you have mini Jersey cows or whatever, feed them this stuff before you start feeding them grains. Feed this to your chickens. It's a great source of protein, it's a great source of nutrition, it's replenishable, it's just really cool stuff. So anyway, I hope you found this interesting. Let me know if you have kudzu in your area. Let me know if you've ever tried cooking it, you've ever fed it to your animals, and hope you find this interesting. Talk to you soon.